And here we are at the end. Hey everyone, welcome to Princess of Gay. I'm your host Connie, and today we are here with the final two episodes, Season 2, Episode 20 and 21 of The Ghost and Molly McGee. And this is the final two episodes. That's why we're not putting it on the schedule or anything. We're just getting to them just as it goes, because there's only two left. Why bother waiting to put that on the schedule or figuring out some other way to put it on, you know? It just wouldn't really make sense. So we're just doing this today to start the week off with it, get it taken care of, and to just close this out as it is. Now, from what I heard, from what a designer or something, I don't remember exactly what their position is, but a crew member of The Ghost of Molly McGee had said that the show was originally greenlit for Season 3, but that it ended up getting canceled while Season 1 was in production. So, before Season 2 even came out, they knew that it was only going to get the second season. And I don't know if, or maybe it was when Season 1 was airing, maybe they were already working on Season 2 at that point, probably were. But either way, the point is, they knew ahead of time that it was getting canceled and that they were only having a certain amount of time to finish it, basically. At least they were given time to finish it. You have to give them that much. But it was canceled. And because of that, that's probably why it started to feel rushed in the second half of this season. Because there's a lot of plot lines that just have not been resolved at all. There's a lot of plot lines that just haven't gotten enough focus, and a lot of characters that haven't gotten enough focus, especially in the second half of the season. And if this had had the proper time to have a full third season and everything, then it probably would have been able to fix that issue. And it wouldn't have felt so rushed and off. And don't get me wrong, I want to say that the crew did a great job and that the second season was still really good overall. But it's undeniable that there were certain aspects of it that just did not come together as well as they needed to. I've heard people say, and this includes even my sister, that the third season of Owl House was rushed because of the cancellation, because they only had the 3 double-length episodes to work with. And to a degree, sure. But I think Owl House actually was able to do a little better with this. It didn't feel as rushed. This feels a lot more rushed to me than Owl House's finale did. And I'm not just saying that because I do like Owl House more. This feels like it just kind of is happening out of nowhere. And there's a lot about even a lot of these plot points that they just have not given enough attention to. Look, obviously, with this being the finale, they're going to have to wrap up the thing with Scratch. I don't know why I forgot his name. With Scratch's past. Because that was a big thing. And it's only been brought up, twice? And that's the problem. This backstory with Scratch should have been a season-long arc. A season should have started with that. And obviously ended with finding everything out and all. But they weren't able to do that because they only got 2 seasons. They had to kind of condense everything, which also made things like the Chens feel extremely rushed and poorly handled, poorly integrated in. And I like the Chens as characters, but they are just not well handled. And I assume they're going to try to wrap that up in these last 2 episodes, by the way. They're probably going to try to wrap up with, the parents being the last 2 holdouts who don't really like ghosts still. They're gonna probably fix that in this finale. Um, and various other things. Are they gonna tackle the fact that Davenport's was kind of driven out of business by this competitor? Because that was never brought up again. Yet that seemed like a big deal. It felt like that was going to be a storyline going forward. But it was never brought up again. They just never did anything with it. And if they had a full third season, they probably would have been able to. Are we going to get anything about, the fact that Andrea is queer? Probably not. Because there just hasn't been enough time to develop that. We only got that one little shot, that one little thing about that other influencer that she has a crush on. That's it, and that's probably all it's going to be because they were canceled before they really could go into it. There's a lot of things that just have not been, and probably won't be, fully gone into because of this. Because it's not like Owl House, which is a syndicated, or not syndicated, what's the word? Shit. Serialized. A serialized show that has an ongoing story, that makes it easier to kind of reveal things in the way that they did with Luz and Amity and everything. This series is episodic, so it's trying to keep it to a more or a less consistent nature, really. And it's hard to kind of fit that in when they want all this other stuff, when there's all this other stuff they want to do, You would think it would be easier, but I feel like it's probably harder to fit all that in that kind of situation. Of course, I mean, I don't know for sure. I haven't worked on any of these shows, so I can only say from, like, what it appears like to me. There's just so many questions, so many storylines and plot points and whatnot that are just gonna have to be rushed here in the end. And it really sucks. It really does. It's just another example of these shows, of these Disney shows being screwed over by the network. It has happened way too much. Like, these shows are high quality and they're well received. Like, yeah, this isn't as well received as Owl House was. No. Not at all. But it's still very well received. It still has a very notable fan base. But it's not SpongeBob's Nickelodeon. Sorry. It's not whatever their big show is right now. I actually don't know, like, what they're really focusing on right now. But it's not that, so it's like that's how networks tend to work these days. They get this one show that they focus on and put their everything into, and ignore everything else. To the point where they'll just cancel stuff randomly for stupid reasons because it's not what they want to focus on. Cartoon Network has done this with Teen Titans Go. That's their big focus one. Nickelodeon with SpongeBob. And yeah, they've had other hit shows too. All of these networks have had other shows that have continued on. But they're usually the ones that replicate the style, ideas, or childishness of their big ones. Let's be honest. There are always exceptions, but I'm just saying, typically. That's why a lot of these shows get canceled, why a lot of these shows just don't do as well. And the big thing I think it comes down to is the childishness. These networks and the people working for them think that cartoons are for kids only. Hell, some of them have even said that quiet part out loud. They think that cartoons are for kids only, And so they only like to work with and market and, care about the ones that have bigger child audiences. Let's be completely honest here. The majority of Owl House's audience were adults. That's Let's be honest. It just is the case. Molly McGee probably had more of a split, but that's not what they want. They want the majority to be children and have very few adult viewers, because they think that if the show has more adult viewers, they're doing something wrong. That's not what they think cartoons should be. So it's ridiculous, of course. Like, if you make a cartoon and it only appeals to children, honestly, it's a failure. Unless it's like a preschool cartoon, like Bob the Builder or Dora the Explorer. Because those are specifically meant to educate children when they're in that preschool age range. That's different. But when you just have like a regular cartoon, if it only appeals to children, it's a failure. And I'm so glad that a lot more people and studios and stuff are realizing this. But these big networks still have an issue with it. And it's sometimes happens even with a lot of these other streaming services and stuff. But most of the time when the streaming services cancel a lot of these shows, it's more because of other reasons. Um, like with Netflix canceling like stuff like Dead End Paranormal Park and whatnot, it's because, oh, this didn't make as much money as we needed and wanted it to in this very specific amount of time. It's like, oh, the first week of viewing didn't get the numbers we wanted it to, then it must be a failure. Despite the show being excessively popular. We just think it's a failure because it didn't get the numbers we wanted in that short amount of time. Ignoring the fact that not everybody can just binge watch shit. I really hate the binge model. I really hate the binge model. It is such an actively harmful model to shows, especially animation. And that's why I like to react to stuff week by week as much as I can. Like, I don't binge a lot. The only times I ever binge stuff is when it's something that I'm just that invested in, to the point where it's like, oh, yeah, I'm going to watch maybe 2 or 3 episodes a week instead of one. It's not even like binging the whole series. I don't like doing that. I've done that before with a couple things, and I don't like doing that. I still chalk that up as probably one of the reasons why I didn't like Stranger Things Season 2 as much. Because I binged that shit in pretty much one sitting. And that really hurt my enjoyment of the season. Mind you, I still think it was not a good season comparatively to literally all the others, but it definitely was made worse because of that. Anyway, enough ranting about shit. We should probably get on with the episode. I apologize for all that. It's just sometimes you need to just let it out. Plus, admittedly, it sucks coming to the end of a series that I really enjoy. So there's that part of me that also doesn't want to, start this, because that means I have to end this. But I'm just curious how all this is going to wrap up. Like, again, it's going to be rushed. Like, we have 2 normal length episodes, except it's going to be, like, full length instead of, like, 2 segments per episode. I believe each of these episodes is full length, which is still just not enough time. But we'll see how it goes. So, When the screen fades to black, pause this redirect and go to the description below. Follow the link to the reaction, and after you watch it, come back here to the redirect and resume play. Excuse me. Because after it fades to black and then fades back in, everything from that point forward will be my afterthoughts and will contain spoilers to the episodes. So, that being said, thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you at the reaction. And we are back, and we begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. So that was the finale of Todd and Molly McGee. It was extremely rushed. I'm not gonna lie. I liked it. I loved it, and there were certain parts of it that caught me very off guard, that surprised me, but made so much sense when you think about it. But at the same time, it's just undeniable that it was super rushed. They really just, and it has to be because it was canceled. Like I said, Jinx versus the human world would have been a great finale to season 2, while this would have been great for a season 3 finale and series finale overall. But having them back to back just feels extremely rushed because neither of them got the time they needed. Also, I did notice Andrea wasn't anywhere in these episodes. That sucks. And again, that kind of goes in line with the fact that this had to be rushed and everything. But also, there were a couple points you could have put Andrea in there. Like, I understand she didn't know about the ghost stuff, so having her be like one of the ghost pals or whatever they were called wouldn't really work. But like, she wasn't even like, I don't even think she was shown in the background in anything. And that's really disappointing because it's like, partially because she's, my favorite character. She actually did surpass Libby as my favorite. But it's also because she just kind of disappeared. It's like the character just kind of just disappeared from the show. And it just feels so out of place. She's just not there anymore. And that's a notable issue. Like, I understand that she wasn't as big of a character as Libby overall. Libby was always more of like, Molly's human best friend. But that's really disappointing that they didn't even like show her. It's just, I guess, is a product of this being canceled. There probably would have been a lot more of her if they didn't have to rush out this ending. And it just really sucks. Like I said, both parts of this finale, I guess you could say, would have been better as a two-parter. Both of these episodes felt extremely rushed. Jinx versus the human world, it needed more time to not only set up this plot starting, but also for Jinx to have taken over. This was not a single episode plot. Jinx needed to take over and be in charge of the ghost world and everything and be, a menace for a lot longer for everything to kind of work out. The fact that it was resolved so quickly, the fact that it was just so easily taken care of feels wrong. It feels like it was, well, again, rushed, which it was. And it just, they needed more time to set all of this up. It would have been a good time for maybe Andrea to find out about all of this. Like, ghosts are invading the human world and shit. That would be a perfect time for Andrea to truly find out. Like, she almost kind of found out before when there was a ghost invasion. This would have been a great time for her to, come to realize this. And I'm sure they could have, even with it being rushed like this, could have probably slipped it into the episode somehow. even if it's just a little like side thing, like for like, I don't know, like 10 seconds, showing Andrea running away from the ghosts. And maybe like when they're getting together to fight back against Jinx and all of the Sob Goblins, maybe Andrea's there with them at that point. You don't have to like include her in the story like to a major degree, but still, could have done something there. And then that could have led into the next episode when they're searching for Scratch and all. Maybe Andrea could have been helping. It would have been nice to at least just see her. You know what I mean? Um, but yeah, it's like there just needed to be more time with that. It felt like it was just like way too easily resolved and way too, especially with the Chens and everything. The Chen parents just accepted it way too easily. Jeff with a G being the cause of all of the Chen's issues and all was a fine twist. I'm good with that. Again, I just feel like this was all just like thrown in super quickly. Um, and then we have the second of these two episodes, the end. And this is, again, extremely rushed. Like, again, they've only mentioned Scratch's past and all of that stuff, like maybe twice before. And it's like, it feels like to just have that all revealed here so fucking quickly, especially with the massive reveal that Todd was him all along and that he was a wraith rather than an actual like full-fledged ghost. It's like the reveals and everything are amazing, but it's so rushed. It needed more time to breathe. It's like it's just throwing all of this at you so quickly that you just don't get a chance to really take it all in. And don't get me wrong, like I was crying. Like this episode did hit me. It is sad to see this series end, and at the same time, it's happy to see Todd going out there and living his best life, even if he doesn't remember everything. Like, some things are still sneaking through, some things are still subconsciously there, but he doesn't remember everything. And I think that's for the best, because that means he can go out and live his life unfettered. It's a fantastic twist. It just needed more time. There needed to be more time to just breathe and let this episode really dig into things. Again, it just needed another episode. This needed to be a two-parter. There needed to be especially more time with them figuring out Scratch's past. And the fact that the big reveal is just like thrown in there, just, oh, Libby comes out of nowhere. It's like, oh, I discovered everything. We found out all of it. It's just like, oh, that's convenient. And again, I'm not going to hate on the people who made this. I'm not going to hate on the crew. They did their best. They really did. They gave us a great show with a great finale. They did what they could do, and they made it work. But it's not as good as it could have been. Because there just needed to be more time. And unfortunately, they just didn't have it. The crew were given what they were given, and they had to work with it. And it sucks. But we can't really just wonder about what would have been. We only know what is. And we can wish it would have been the other way, but nothing's going to change this fact now. It's another show that Disney sniped because it wasn't their thing. They didn't get it. And it wasn't appealing to the audiences they wanted it to appeal to, I guess. Again, can't entirely say for 100% sure, but that's kind of the vibes it gave me and everything. It was good still. It was a good finale, and like I said, it made me cry. It was very emotional. It was very shocking, but at the same time, not really shocking at all because, I figured it out right before it was said, and it just like clicked in my head, and it was so like obvious because it just made sense. Everything was there. Everything had been there for so long. We were given every bit of evidence we needed to know. And yet it just didn't click before. It just never clicked. We had seen Todd since the beginning of this series. I don't remember like which episode he specifically debuted in, but we had been seeing him since the beginning of this series, and again, we were given all the information we needed. We had seen multiple times what Molly's body was like when her soul wasn't in it. And we'd even seen that with a couple of other characters. So we had all that information. We just didn't, put it together. And that's pretty cool, actually. I really like that. I didn't guess that ahead of time. Because it was such a good twist because of that. And I think it's probably made that way. I think it's like written in a way to where you probably wouldn't guess that. You just think he's kind of a down on his luck dude. The funny thing is when you look at their faces, it's actually pretty obvious too. They look alike if you actually really look at it. But yeah, it's like, and it recontextualizes so much. Even just what we've known about like Scratch's backstory since we started hearing about it, because we had thought he died, because he was a ghost, right? But no. Now it never specifically said how long he was a wraith, how long he had spent outside of his body. All we know is that he was already an adult. He was already an adult. It was probably only a couple years. Because him and Adia looked pretty much the same when he left his body. So it was probably only a couple years that he was outside, but it was enough time for him to forget. And honestly, that part at the end with Todd like going off on the bus and everything, that was definitely not that long after. That was 100% not that long after he re-entered his body. I'd say, like, maybe weeks. Which means he started losing his memory pretty quickly. And that implies that he probably started losing his memory pretty quickly when he was a wraith as well. So, I don't think it was that long, but I could see a couple of years. A couple of years is believable because he had to also have had enough time to, make the connections that he did within the ghost world and everything. With Jeff and the Ghost Council and everyone. Like, there had to have been enough time there. Plus, to have the record he had with the Ghost Council and everything, being a troublemaker and everything. I think a couple years is pretty good guess for that. And again, that might have been something that might have been gone into more if we had more time, if we were given another episode to this finale. But yeah, it's like, it's a really wild close to this series, but also a really happy one. Because Scratch gets to go on living his best life. And even though he and Molly are now separated, probably for forever, they're not really going to be friends anymore. It's like all those memories remain, and in the end, Molly's happy knowing he's happy. And that's what's important. So, like I said, I really liked this finale. I really did. But the rushing was undeniable. Like, much more undeniable than with Owl House. Owl House was so... it felt less rushed. It didn't feel as bad with it. the crew of the Owl House were able to make it work a little better, I think, in terms of how it felt at the end. But again, we can't like blame the crew for this. This isn't their fault. They did what they could with what they were given. And they did a great job. It's going to be sad to see this series go. It's going to be sad that we're not going to have any more of this. But, I mean, no series lasts forever, and sometimes it's better for a series to end earlier than go on forever. But at the same time, it's also better for a series to have, like, you know, proper conclusions instead of being rushed to end because of cancellations. To be fair. Either way, like I said, I really like this, and I really hope that Disney starts to actually fucking learn and not cancel this shit, because this is definitely starting to be a problem. It's getting really bad at this point, and we really, really needed more here. It's really disappointing, but the finale itself was great. And I would say that the songs in this finale were probably some of the best songs of the series. Like, they were perfectly emotional when they needed to be, perfectly interesting and entertaining, and really, really sold the finality of this. I really like Jinx's song, funny enough. As much as I don't think Jinx should have been the final villain of the series, because that's really fucking underwhelming. I do also think her song was great. And that kind of goes into what I was saying too, though, with the Jinx thing. If that was like a season 2 finale, and then there was a full season 3 with the end being the season 3 finale, and having like maybe some other kind of villain before that, that would have been great. Because Jinx as a final villain is so underwhelming. She's not that great of a villain. Like, she's a nuisance at best. And so yeah, and there were certain parts of this, there were certain things that just weren't resolved. Like with Davenport's, just was not resolved. Like, even if Davenport's wouldn't have like gotten back into the limelight and defeated their competition, it's like, at least show that, you know? But no, we just have no proper conclusion to that at all. And again, Andrea hasn't even been in like for a while, so it's disappointing. But again, I'm not blaming the creators, I'm not blaming the crew. It's not on them, it's on Disney, specifically the executives who oversee the Disney Channel. I just really hope that future shows go better. And I really hope that just, even ones not on Disney, that future cartoons, like, all over the place, even, like, through streaming, I really hope that this kind of thing stops being so common. These networks and streaming services need to stop canceling these shows before their time. Especially ones that are popular. Oh, well, I mean, I guess there's not really much of anything we can do about that, though. We could just hope and wish. And God help them if they cancel Has-Been Hotel. That will piss me off. I have been looking forward to that for so fucking long. If they end up canceling that, I will be livid. this show was great. Like, overall, The Ghost of Molly McGee was an absolute blast. It never went, like, full story in the same way that Owl House and Amphibia did, but it still, even with its episodic nature, was definitely within the same kind of storytelling and series as them. It's like these three shows are kind of like the successors to Gravity Falls in a way. They all have the same style, the same vibes, the same kind of humor. They just feel like they're part of the same generation of shows, you know what I mean? Like, there's obviously notable differences with their plots and ideas and whatnot, but nonetheless, they are very similar, and that's just unquestionable. And I'm really happy that all three shows ended up being so good. Even with two of them, I think, getting canceled. I don't think Amphibia was canceled, but I might be wrong. If Amphibia was canceled, it handled it the best because it did not at all feel like it was canceled. Amphibia felt like it was just that's how it was always supposed to be. So if Amphibia was canceled, God, did it handle it the best out of the three of these shows. I actually have no idea. Um, but nonetheless, all three of these shows, and especially The Ghost of Molly McGee here for this video, were all very good. And I really love them all, and I will always have fond memories of all of them. Um, and hey, I did an episode ranking video for the other two. Maybe I'll do one of those for this too and rank all the episodes of the series. Do a tier list for that. That would actually be pretty fun. I might actually do that. Um, in the meanwhile, though, tell me what you thought of this finale. Both separate parts of it, I guess you could say. Let me know your thoughts on and whether you thought it was as rushed as I did, or just your thoughts on Todd being scratched the entire time, on the truth of him not being even like a full-fledged ghost, but a wraith, and so on and so forth. Let me know your thoughts, and thank you so much for tuning in. For now, I'm Connie, and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.